After the devastation of the Second World War, the world was left with two major superpower nations. On the one hand, you had the United States of America, and on the other hand, you had the USSR, the Union of Soviet and Socialist Republics, sometimes referred to as the Soviet Union, sometimes and incorrectly referred to as Russia. Now, both of these nations, they didn't get along. They were never in direct conflict with each other, but they were not friends, to say the least. They always wanted to show that they were bigger and stronger than their opponents. This could lead to some pretty scary consequences, as both nations built up a huge arsenal of nuclear weapons, huge bombs that could take out entire cities. It also had a less serious side. Both countries wanted to compete with each other in the Olympics to see who would come top of the medal table, and it was usually one of these two nations. And what's more, there was also the space race. A race between those two countries to see who would achieve certain aspects of space exploration the first. With advances in technology, it was becoming more and more possible for human beings to send objects into space. But which country would be first? The USA were desperate to be the world leader in space exploration, but it was the Soviet Union who first sent a man-made satellite to orbit the Earth, launching Sputnik 1 on the 4th of October 1957. Well, the next great feat surely would be sending a human being up into space, and maybe America would win that one. They did not. The Soviet Union sent up Yuri Gagarin in April of 1961. Perhaps furious with this defeat, then President John F. Kennedy declared that by the end of the 1960s, the USA would put a man on the moon. Now, this was considered laughable at the time, unthinkable. How could human beings walk on the moon? But you know what? They achieved just that. On the 16th of July 1969, the Apollo 11 rocket launched containing 3 astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins. 4 days later, they arrived at the moon. Buzz Aldrin descended to the moon in the Eagle landing capsule. But spare a thought for poor old Michael Collins here, because despite the fact that he went all of that way, he never got the chance to walk on the moon. Buzz and Neil waited for 6 hours on the moon's surface before finally Neil Armstrong descended down that ladder and uttered the immortal words.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
650 million people were at home watching on television as this momentous feat unfolded before them. The astronauts carried out experiments, including dropping a feather and a hammer to see if they both landed at the same time. They did. And planted a flag on the moon just to show that America had got there first. They spent a total of 21 hours on the moon, less than a full day, but they returned to Earth as heroes, not just in America, but all over the world. They were given a ticker-tape parade through New York City, and their names have gone down in history as some of the most famous people to have ever lived. Something that always blows my mind about it is the fact that the smartphone I'm recording this video on right now is millions of times more powerful than the computers that were used to power the Apollo 11 mission. It's crazy. And yet, since 1972, nobody has been back to the moon. But that could all change. Anyone fancy a trip to Mars?